Hello and welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful. I am back in the studio today with what I hope is the last video in this series. So I wanted to kind of go over a few things and say some thank yous to everyone who has been following along in these series and being patient, because I did take quite a long break in between. And it's been a lot of fun to work on. It was a project that started out one spot and just kind of kept growing into now 4 journals. So the first one was shipped off today. And so I also want to thank those of you who reached out to me in different ways, Etsy messages and YouTube, and I also get messages on Instagram and Facebook. So if you ever see anything and want to reach out outside of just the comments, feel free to do that. I try to get back to you as quickly as possible. And I did have a question from someone asking, what do I do with my journals, and do I sell them, and how does that all work? So I do have an Etsy shop, and that's where I list things. A lot of times they don't make it that far because I get the messages ahead of time that somebody is seeing it in progress and wants to purchase it. So don't wait maybe until I have it finished if you see something you like, because chances are it's already spoken for. I'm going to try to make some more kind of what I'm going to call naked journals like this one, so that I can get some out and listed on my Etsy shop. The other ones take quite a bit more time, and I think because of the number of videos and things I do, they end up, like I said, getting spoken for during their progress. So I'm going to show you where I am today, because I'm hoping to finish all these up. This was the one that started, I think, at the beginning of the series. And I don't always know if I'm going to sell them when I start them. But then when I do get a request, I hate to say no. So I wasn't sure about this one, and I had started working on the insides, but I did get a message yesterday or the day before, so I'm going to go ahead and sell it. So I want to do a flip through because I hadn't done a final flip through of this one. And like I said, this one I had started working on decorating the insides, and this person asked if I could just stop. They'll finish it up, I guess. So I don't mind doing that either. This is kind of the fun part for me. So I'm thinking maybe one of my next projects, possibly, I always think I'm going to do this, is do the project, make all the videos before I even upload them onto YouTube, so that the project is for your end, goes from start to finish. And then that way I haven't had somebody kind of want to purchase it halfway through, and I get to have the pleasure of finishing it without the expectation that I have sold it to a specific person. I don't know if that makes sense, but if you have done this, I think you'll understand what I mean. There's a creative process involved, and sometimes that changes when you're actually realizing that someone's buying it. And so either you're in a hurry to finish it up, or now you just have added pressure because you're wondering if they're going to like what you're doing. So I may take a different approach as I move forward, but anyway, this is where I'm at. So I had started decorating, and I think really I didn't even get through the first signature. So I'm just going to do a quick flip through here. There are videos on some of the different things that I did. So I've got pockets. In some cases I don't have the cards inside yet, but I have to say I'm kind of happy because I put this aside for so long. I am not sad about, having it move on, so that I can maybe start working on some other projects. This one has a couple of different tucks with some cards already there. Pocket here, little belly band here. So I'm just kind of, embracing where I'm at, and I'm okay with that. So just a few little things here. Some things I hadn't even glued on yet. I was just kind of clipping them where they were going to go. A little card here, another one here. And I think that's about it. I think the rest, other than maybe starting, little tuck here. I know I'm going through this kind of quick and not very close up, but you get the idea. Kind of fun to go through it again. I hadn't even looked through it when I got back and started working on things. oops, a little pocket there. So this one would have taken me a lot longer. I see all the things I have in here. Would have taken me a lot longer to finish up. So it's kind of fun that it's going to move on to its new owner. And I know a lot of people, I'm sure, maybe don't want to do the actual construction of a book, but they like the whole, you know, junk journal idea and just want to do the fun part inside. So that's why I think I'm going to do some naked ones. But again, for my own just creative process, I will once in a while, I think, want to finish one up on the insides just because that's the details and fun part. So that one is going to a new home. I'll put that one aside. I'm going to grab this one real quick first. This one was the one that because I put the woman, let me see if I get in here a little closer. Because I put the lady on this cover, which I'm going to continue working on, I needed a spine cover for this one. And I was going to do a stitching one again, but they take so long. So I thought, I found this piece of fabric and I liked it on here. So I just went ahead and finished it, attached it the same way I do with the whole floating spine idea. And I'm just going to leave it like it is. That way someone else could glue on other patches if they want, add a closure. But I think I'm just going to leave it as a naked book because that way it could, you know, you can finish it up. So there's one pocket here. I'll kind of go through all these pages because I've done that before on this one, but now that it's finished, I want you to really take a look at it because this one is still available. So a little pocket here, and I will get it listed in my Etsy shop. Hopefully by the time this video is up, this will already be in the shop. So unless it sells before the video is live, but this is all just different digitals printed front and back, my own and others that I have listed down in the description. So if you want to purchase the digitals and create your own journals, then you can do that too. And a little flippy pocket here. And another little pocket. And I've covered all these in videos where I printed on the envelopes. See, I got a little glue there. Little pocket here. This is also a pocket. Okay, so that is this one that is still available. So this will be in the Etsy shop. Okay, and then this one, I also had a couple of people who asked if this was available. So it does have a new home. Either one or the other of them will take it, I'm sure. But I wanted to go ahead and show you how I'm finishing it up. I did part of it off camera, but I will walk through in case you haven't watched the previous videos. And as always, there's a playlist in the description if you want to watch this entire series from the beginning, because I do cover a lot of things in it more detail than I'm going to do today. So, but in case you are just watching this for the first time, I do want to kind of go over my process with you really quick, because the other day I ended up just gluing this onto the front of a recycled book cover, the Encyclopedia of Etiquette, and now I needed to do the insides. So that's what I've done today, and I'm going to go ahead and glue these together on camera. So I took my little piece of recycled material and wrapped it in this printed fabric that I just printed on my printer. And I do have videos about how to do that if you haven't tried that. Super easy. And then I added the scrim onto the front of it because that is going to be my little flaps that get glued down that are going to hold everything in and together. Normally, and you can do this, whoever's buying this, if you want, I'm not going to put another book, another piece of fabric or paper on top of this. But if you want to do that, that's normally how a book would then be finished. But I like leaving this exposed. So that's what I'm going to do for this one. Once I had my piece with my little, my other fabric just glued to the top there, I took a ruler and a pencil. And for this ruler is really handy. It's a quilter's ruler instead of just your regular ruler. And it's handy because it has nice grid lines that go both directions, so you can get everything nice and even. For this, you don't really have to have everything, you know, measured out because it doesn't show, but I like to just because it makes it easy. Okay, so even though you can't see my lines, I basically used the ruler and I made a line that went all the way down from in the center. And then I took that dimension and split the difference again and did a line to the center on each side because I have 3 signatures. If you're new to making journals, you can make any number of signatures that you want. These are called signatures, if you're not familiar. Each one of these. Each paper that's folded in half inside is called a folio. And you can have as many of those in each signature as you want. I think these might have 10 folios in each signature. If you haven't done this before, you want to realize that when you add pockets and add all kinds of things, they get really big and open. So you want to leave some room inside, so you don't want it too full. This is probably a good amount, and it's probably going to still end up being open once it's all filled with goodies. Okay, so once I have my line drawn this way, then I need to have punch my holes to sew my signatures into the spine. And a lot of people use three holes, just top, bottom, and center. I like to use 5 holes because I think it's a little sturdier. And oftentimes my pages aren't all the same height. Some are shorter and I want to maybe stagger them. So if I have 5 holes, I'm more likely to be able to catch at least 2 or 3 in even a short page or an envelope, little pocket kind of thing. Okay, so what I do is I take, actually I should back up a little bit before I show how I sew this all in and cover maybe what you might want to select even to do your pages. I have a couple of tips that make doing this selection really quick. So what I have in my stash is, you know, if you're starting from scratch and you need to make those signatures and you just don't even have anywhere to start, you may then end up taking a lot of time to copy your tea stain paper or find old book pages and do all the things. So what I like to do, a bin, and I probably need to go out like this so you can see. I have this little basket and it's full of parts for folios. So you can see I can make a lot of journals with all of this. But what I have is like I have a section here and these are all folios made from printed digitals. Some of them are printed onto coffee stained or tea stained paper so that they have some grunginess to them. You can also print on any of your coffee stained papers. Like I coffee stain all of this section here. All of these are all different kinds of coffee stained papers, whether they're book pages or graph paper or ledger paper. It's all things that I've coffee stained ahead of time so they're grungy. And so I could use these and print these onto here. And then, you know, I have some digitals that are on grungy paper. So I take, I'll leave that pile there for a second, just all the different things and I print them. You know, some of these I actually have already started maybe folding in a way that allowed me a pocket or a little tuck. but I get them at least to this folio stage, and they're all print double-sided. Some of them have like what I call my B sides that are a little washed out looking, so more writable sides, and then these busy sides would be more for adding pockets and flaps and all that kind of stuff. So I have a pile of these, that way I can just kind of grab from these to start making my signatures. And usually I'll like maybe put 1 or 2 of these printed colorful ones in each signature, just as a rule of thumb. And that's just me. You can do whatever you want. But then I'll maybe take all of these coffee stained papers and just pre-fold them. And for example, this one was a really long ledger paper, so it's kind of a tri-fold thing. And I know that when I actually go to put them in my book, I may have to trim them or tear them because maybe they're a little too tall or too wide. But generally, folding a paper in half is going to be, you know, the largest that maybe my book is. So you can see that I have just some other lined papers. And I may fold some one direction where the lines are going this way, because you can turn a book on its side and write in a journal that way. Some of them I will fold up and make shorter pages with a little tuck. So you just, you know, sit and do, and they all can be different. You know, it's going to get sewn in here, and I have a little short end that could, you know, and a wider side. So I just sit and kind of fold a whole bunch of these into my little folios, even like little tissue-y kind of papers, and book pages that I have coffee stained. So just dictionary page, music paper, anything. So just make a whole bunch of folios and have a stash of them. And that way, when you start to put your signatures together, you can just grab, you know, one of each kind of paper and randomly put them together. You know, map page that's been coffee stained. I have lots of old book page, and like I said, some old music page. So just have a stash ready to go that's already folded in half, and then that makes that step much faster. The other thing that I like to have done ahead of time is I keep a box of envelopes. And so these are mostly recycled envelopes. And sometimes I'll coffee stain or tea stain ahead. I've done videos where I show you how I kind of prep them, where I cover up any of the modern barcodes or text or anything that I don't like with maybe some white tape or glue some paper, cover up anything that I don't want to see. And then I printed them. And sometimes I need to prep them more, like maybe I need to line them with book page or, you know, that kind of thing. So I need to work on this stash a little bit, pull these out. But I like to even take them a step further. And let's see if I've done any of these. Maybe get them really ready to go into a book. So I've already actually even distressed. I've covered windows, you know, any kind of reinforcement or lining and inside that I want to do, making my little notches there, you know, getting them all ready. So this one I could actually stick into a signature. It's all ready to go. So if you know, prep some ahead of time, then you have, you know, you have things all ready. I need to work on this box. I said I don't have enough in here ready to go. Then the other thing that I have, this is some vintage ephemera, and I have the link below for this one, to make up some just little envelopes and like some vintage ephemera things that could maybe get tucked into your journals. So I kind of leave this box for a little, that sort of thing. And then the other thing that I need to do, and I need to do up some ahead myself, is a lot of times for actual book page, I'll show you through here. I'll just take this first signature just to kind of show you how I put them together. I had a printed one with something lighter on the back side, some coffee stained paper, some actual book page, and a lot of times the actual book page now will maybe be a little fragile depending on the age of the paper and when it came out of the book. So I like to kind of go through each signature once I have them laid out and see where I might need to reinforce something. Here in this case, I had made a little pocket on top of that one. So that's something that you might want to do ahead of time before you sew them in. The other thing is, if you wanted to do any stitching on your sewing machine, you would need to do that ahead of time also. So kind of, you know, put your signature together and think about any of that type of thing that you need to do before you sew them into your book. I have in the past done journals where I go through and I do all of the decorative part, all the pockets and tucks and everything before I sew them into my book, because then it kind of lets me see how thick it's going to be. And again, if I want to do sewing, I have some journals where I've done a lot of stitching on my sewing machine, and so I have to do that ahead. So that is just the first signature. So I had to go in and just this one Shakespeare book page that I had, I needed to reinforce that in the center before I sewed it in. So the other thing that I like to have on hand is some things to do that reinforcement. Washi tape's an obvious one. I don't have a lot of washi tapes, but if you do, that works great. You oftentimes, and I usually will go ahead and use a glue stick and add that to my washi tape just to make sure it's adhered really well. Washi tape sometimes is really low tack, and so especially if you have a book page that has a real linen texture because it's old paper, that doesn't stick very well. So you want to go ahead and use a glue stick and to stick that down. The other thing that I like to use is just some tape, and I've shown this on previous videos, where I take my recycled sticker, my shipping labels come on the sticker back paper. I save that because it's, you know, it's slick, and then I will just put just gift scotch tape, kind of a matte finish, strips of that on, and then in this case I just used my Distress Oxide Vintage Photo to just age that so that it looks like that, you know, old tape, because I like that kind of distressed vintagey look. This one is this color because I had attempted to stamp on it and tried to heat set it to see if that would work, and it didn't. The ink just, even though I used like archival ink, it just smeared. So I didn't mind that because now I just have grungy tape. So that's why that one's a different color. You could also use a different color, like ground coffee, ground espresso or something like that, and just get any color you want of tape. So that is one option. And then the other thing is, in this case, if I had little tears on my book page that I just needed to cover a little bit, I've taken some, this is some tracing paper, just scraps of tracing paper from my jelly prints. And I just, when I trimmed those edges off, I kept all that and then stamped on it. And you can glue that down, and it kind of has that washi tape look also. The other thing you can use is, this is medical tape. So it sticks well. You can also add glue to it if you need it to be stickier, but this one sticks pretty well. And it just has that kind of texture on the top that you could, you know, then again, use your Distress Oxides in any color and kind of grunge those up. You know, anything to color it, stamping on it, you could do that just to create your own kind of faux washi tape. And then the other thing that works really well for a faux washi tape, and again, for my gel prints that I trim, you know, the edges off of, this is rice paper. And so that also works really well. So I just keep, you know, strips of this, my scraps, and then that way I can, you know, use my oxides or inks and color those, stamp on them or whatever I want, and then I have some nice pieces to use for reinforcement. The other thing you can use is, you don't even have to be using a paper or a tape kind of thing. I did it in this grungy journal, is to use, let me find it. You can hinge things with fabric, grungy fabric that's glued on. And in this case, I sewed it as well. And so that's what I mean by, before you put it into your book, like this one, if you watch these videos, I did these signatures before I sewed them into my book, and I am working on volume 2 of this book. So if you didn't watch this first volume is a series that I did quite a while ago, and I am going to finish up my second volume. But you can use scrim. That, you know, I use that a lot just because it's really thin, muslin, any kind of fabric, and use that also to reinforce your seams, your folds before you sew them in. So that's just something that you need to do as you're making your signatures. Let me go here to my second one. So this was my second signature, and like I said, I think each of these has about 10 or so pages in it, folios in it. This one I just have some washi tape where that needed a little reinforcing. And this one was pretty good. I did use some of my faux old tape on that one. I did put an envelope pocket in this one. This one also has some of the tape. And then this is washi tape down the center. And you see there's, you know, a pretty good balance of varieties of paper, some totally plain, some with, you know, good writing space that has maybe lines or graph, and then some, you know, just to add a little punch of color that can have things attached to the top of this. And then this is my last signature. I didn't do a lot of pattern things in this one. The person that's buying this, I think she said she also bought my digitals. So this way she can really make it her own, you know. Okay, I kept that one very simple. And now I just need to go ahead and go over how I finished attaching these. So I had my 3 signatures. You do want to make sure you have all of your pages in case there's shorter things or taller things arranged how you want. And then I'll use a clip. You can use a giant paper clip or something. And just clipping those really helps you keep everything kind of tight in the center until you get your holes punched and get it sewed together. So you want to, you know, clip those together. So you do the 3 signatures. And then you want to measure out your 5, where your 5 holes are going to be. Nothing shows really except for in the center of your signature. You can see the threads there. So, you know, if you want to do them even, that's, you know, some people are more perfectionist than others. You can eyeball it or you can actually measure. In this case, I did take my ruler and I measured. My pages were 8 inches tall, so it was really easy. I just found the center. And then I like to go about 1/2 inch from the top and the bottom just to make sure if I have a little bit shorter of a page, give myself, you know, a little space there. So I've gone a 1/2 inch in, and then I take this measurement and kind of find the center. And so I end up with 5 holes. So I mark those, get everything clipped and marked. And then in my case, I went ahead and punched my holes, I believe, on this first so that I could use it as a template. So if you mark your 5 here, then you can just lay this on the top of your, let me get a folio so I can kind of illustrate this better. So here's my folio. I can either mark my 1/2 inch in, you know, my marks on this, and use this as a template on this piece, or vice versa. And I kind of like going the opposite way. So I would have this piece then, if this is my first signature, I set this on top because I can see where I've marked my holes or made my holes already. Lay it onto the center of here, and then you can punch through everything. So I use this. You can use a towel, just something so that you have some room to punch through. I would take this here. I either have my marks on this or have my little spine to use as a template. And so if this is going to be my first signature, I'm going to line that first line with holes that I made onto it, okay, and punch my holes. This is maybe 10 pages. I've got them all together, okay? So same within my center one. I would take my second signature, lay it out, find my center, put my little template on the center line so that those holes are lined up, and punch those holes through. So you need some kind of little pokey tool. I'm using this, came with my bookbinding kit, and you're just going to punch through on top using this spine as your template. And then same thing with the third one. I'm going to line that third line up, which has its holes already, on sitting on top of my last signature, and punch through all those holes. That way you know that your holes are going to line up where you want on your spine. Okay, so once I did that, I did the sewing part, which was the kind of tedious part, so that's why I didn't want to do it on camera. I've done it on camera before, but I start my thread, and I used, in this case, you can use what you have. If you're not a bookbinder and you don't have all the bookbinding supplies, you can use embroidery thread. It is nice to use a needle that is blunt at the end so that you don't split your threads. I have shown in the past, if you have just a crewel embroidery needle or something like that and it is too sharp on the end, if you happen to have some nipper tools that will, some heavy duty cutter, like out in your garage, maybe you have some tools out there, you'll need heavy duty like that. Jewelry making tools, most of mine aren't, the cutters are not enough to cut like through something this sturdy, but you can cut that tip blunt and then use an emery board, or if you have a metal file or something, and just dull that down, and that way you won't split your thread. So I like to use a dull needle. In this case, this is bookbinding waxed thread, but like I said, you can use embroidery thread. You can use, maybe you have some waxed cording that you use for jewelry making or something like that. Beading thread, you could use that. If you want it to be waxed, it does slide through easier. And if you don't have waxed thread and you're just using embroidery thread, or say upholstery thread or button or craft thread, which is thicker, then you can take just a tea light candle or something and just run that along your thread, and that will wax your thread. So it just makes it glide through easier. You don't have to do that, but I just find it's easier to use wax thread. So I started the middle hole from this back side because that's going to end up being hidden. So I just would take my book. Imagine I have thread here. I'm going to go in the center, pull it out, go into the next hole, which is going to pull me to the back, then go up to the top. It's brought me back inside, and then go back in this one, out, back to the center, out, and then you just go the other direction, out, in, okay, out, and then you end up here, and you can tie your knot. What that does is it gives you a stitch. You should end up having a stitch line on each section, in the front and in the back, and that way it's really well attached. Okay, so you want those in there pretty tight. Tie your knot. You do all three of those, and I just dropped my needle somewhere. It's probably stuck in my book somewhere. Anyway, tie a knot, and then I've just put a little piece of tape. You could glue them down or not, but I just put a little piece of tape just to make sure I don't have any little thing flying around. There's my needle. Okay, so now I have them all sewn in, and it takes a few minutes, you know, and it's a little kind of awkward, especially if you don't do it a lot, and I hadn't done it in a while, so it took me a bit. And now I'm ready to glue this down, and it's the same way that I think I did it on camera the other day for the other one. You just want to make sure you're even where you want to be. That little cardboard bit that's in the middle, should kind of sit nicely inside there. You know, I have this paper towel roll that I used, and that leaves you a little gap then that's kind of the soft gap in between. And you want that, you're going to glue that down with just the fabric. So you just kind of take a look at it and make sure it's nice and even, and it is. And then if you want, you can use something to weight this one side down while you're working on the other so it doesn't shift. My husband was nice enough to bring me these really heavy lead weights, so sometimes I use those. You can actually just maybe lay another book there if you want, but this keeps me from kind of moving everything around, keeps it all lined up. So I don't know if you can see that there. So now I just want to glue these wings down with my bookbinding glue. So today I'm going to use my neutral pH, because this is archival then. And you can also just use PVA. And you're going to, if you want, you can make a mark. I don't really want to on this one because I don't want to see the mark through the scrim. The other thing that you can do, and I did it when I was gluing this down, is I took a piece of this tape. You can use washi tape, it's probably better for this one because it's lower tack than this. And that way I kind of made myself a line where I wanted the glue to go without drawing a line. So I'm going to kind of just eyeball here just to kind of make sure I don't put it where I don't want it. And this, this scrim is like gauze fabric, so that glue is going to come right through this. So I want to make sure I get it really on there evenly, and I can get it kind of in that crease. And then so that I don't get my fingers too sticky, I'm going to use an old credit card. Just to lay that down. And then I use this one just for glue. It's my little brayer. And then you kind of want to push the card into that little crease. Hopefully I got enough glue in there. And you just kind of keep doing this while it's initially drying. Just because I want to really make sure that is stuck all the way to the edge, because that's what's holding everything in. And then that needs to dry. So it's a good idea to not do this all at once. In fact, I'll probably pause the camera while this dries before I do the other side, because I don't want this to come up. Let me get in here better. I don't want this to come apart and come up while I'm working on the other side. So this is dry enough to the touch. I don't have glue seeping through. If you're worried about that while you're drying it, I would lay something non-stick in between. Maybe you have a silicone craft sheet or something, or some like the sticker paper backing or something like that you can put on here that's not going to stick. And then you can lay another heavy book on it and then put your heavy weight and let that sit for a while until it's dry. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and try to be careful with this. Let's see if I get a book. Okay, I'm going to put that there just to be safe while I work on this other side. So same thing, I want to get in that little crack, and I want to kind of lay this here where my line is. And if I don't get right to the edge where I want to be, that's easy to touch up later. I just want to kind of have an idea. Whoops. Some dried glue is coming off of my spreader. And you can see I need more here, but I'm gonna, let's see if I have enough on here. So same thing, I just want to keep pushing in the edge of this because I really need this edge to be glued down really well. And I don't want to rush it, I want to let it dry. So I'm going to do the same thing and put something down all the way to that edge. And put some weight on it all the way up to this edge. So let me grab something for that side. And this is dry enough, I can feel that I can do this. And my other lead weight. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry and then I will come back and show you the finished product. Okay, I'm back and I have let this dry and done a closure off camera. So I wanted to show you real quick that I'm dry, and I think I want to just stress the importance, especially with this journal because my spine is delicate, of really getting glue in that crease and making sure you use your credit card or something. And while it's drying, just keep going back and forth and really pushing that in there, because that is what is going to keep that together. Those two thin pieces of fabric, the cover and the scrim, really need to be glued together and left in that crease so that you can fold back and forth. Okay, so that is nice and dry. Same with that side. And then I did the same thing with just using some eyelets And then this little vintage bead, which I have not glued down. It can come off, but I think I'll add a little dab of glue just to make sure that kind of stays. And there she is. I kept her really simple. I almost didn't even put a closure on it because I just really liked it plain and simple how it is. I think I'll add this little bit here. I won't glue it on. I'm going to leave it for my person, but I think I'll attach it just so she's got another little something in there. Okay, so that is the other one, and all finished. I love how she turned out. Kind of having a hard time giving her up, but she's going to go to somebody, I'm sure, who's going to do some fun things on the insides. So that's where I'm at, finally finishing this French series. Who knows, I may do another one. I've got all those digitals printed out now, and some empty books that I can do. So I may at some point do that and take my time, but it kind of feels good to be finishing up projects that I had not done in years. I've got 2 projects that are probably 2 years old that I haven't worked on. So for those of you who waited until the end, I'm going to show them to you real quick, and you can tell me which one I should work on. I kind of have a feeling which one I'm going to work on. That may be dictated by kind of a situation I have with some of my materials. I won't go into it in detail, but I may have to wait a couple of months before I get something that I left somewhere. So 2 projects that I have going, and I think this is the older of the 2. This was an altered book that I started a couple of years ago where I painted the cover. So some of you may have started following my channel because of this book, and it's called Things with Wings. And so each kind of spread, if we want to call this a spread, which within the spread has all kinds of fun little things, mechanical things, and just, I don't even remember what all I have in here, but it was all done in kind of a mixed media sort of way. That was actually, you know, when I started this whole channel, that was what started it. I wanted to learn how to do mixed media art. So it's kind of what got me started. So this might be a fun one to at least maybe do a next. This is October of a couple of years ago probably, but you can see I get a little nuts with all the stuff that I do. I kind of was going through a mechanical phase from watching Bohemian Craftings videos, but you can see how they get super thick, you know, where they're never going to close. But to me, it's just like a journal of little art things. And I have not looked at this one in a couple of years, so it's crazy to kind of see it now. So this one might be kind of a fun thing to pick up. And I think with what I have here, I would be able to work on this one without any trouble. What I do is I keep a little bin like this of my ongoing projects so that I can put any little bits of paper or things that I've started working on or ideas, and I just kind of have them there when I'm ready to work on it. So that was this one. So if you vote for the mixed media altered book, let me know. The other one is the second volume of this. So this was the first volume, and it was 3 signatures. Again, you can see how chunky it is. This one was my attempt at doing just a really grungy journal based on a ghost town called Bodie. And it was getting so thick that someone suggested I start a volume 2. And so I've done the cover the same. And there's playlists for both of these. So what I'll do is maybe attach the playlist at the end of this, down in the description, and that way you can see where I had left off. This is my signature about the general store. Each signature was based on a building in Bodie where you don't get to go inside, you just look through the windows. And so I took lots and lots of pictures. So I have the, what is this? A house, a typical house, which this one, there's some things regarding the doctor's house. They just live in their house, and you go to their house and get your services like the doctor or maybe a seamstress. that kind of thing. So I just kind of took all my pictures of the house photos and kind of did a bunch of different pages based on a typical house. And then I did the church. There's a church and a schoolhouse. So those were the buildings that I did first. And now I'm working on the general store. And then I was thinking I was going to do like a hotel saloon one. And I can't remember the third one, but I'll try to remember and see if maybe I have notes. So that is my other option. This one might be a little difficult for me to start for a couple months. I took all my computer stuff with me to Utah for a couple months, and I can't find my external hard drive that I keep all of my business stuff on. So it has like any creative things that are on my computer are not with me. I think I left it in Utah. So I'm going back in a couple months, and I'll maybe be able to do that. So I kind of think I might look through this and see what I have, maybe work on it a little bit, but I think I'm gonna have to work on the other one. I don't know. Tell me what you think, if you want me to work on this one or the other one, or maybe both of them. Maybe I spend a few days on one and then move to the next one. So anyway, that's where I'm at. That's what I'm going to work on next. My goal before I start anything totally new is to finish up some old projects. So that's it for me. Let me know if you want this one. I'll put it in the Etsy shop, and have a great rest of your day. And go make something. Bye.